Okay, in this video we'll take a look at off-hook phantom events, different items to consider if you're troubleshooting odd events on your phone that are basically off-hook phantom events where you're physically not touching the phone but it looks like the phone is going off-hook. The first item we want to do is we want to physically inspect the phone itself, specifically the phone hook switch section, and we want to understand if the hook switch is moving in a smoothly fashion with the right amount of spring tension. And the best way to do this is comparing it to a second phone that you may have to see how the two hook switches compare to each other as far as the tension on the actual spring and the motion. And you want to make sure the motion on the phone that you're having issues with, that the hook switch, when you press it down, that's able to fully go to the bottom, and when you release it, it's able to spring back in a smooth fashion. It's not getting caught on anything. There's not excessive resistance, or if there's not enough resistance where you barely touch it and it just kind of goes down. The tension itself is not that great on these phones as far as it's not a large amount of tension. It's just enough tension. It's basically a balancing act between the weight of the actual handset, which does not weigh a lot, and to make sure when you're putting it down and picking it up, there's really not much interference the user will get. So you will notice if you're comparing it to something in construction or automotive, the spring tension on the phones generally would be very, very low. It would be measured in ounces basically, so very low forces. And the best way to compare is to another working phone. Have the two phones side by side and then press down the hook switch on both phones simultaneously and get a feel for the actual resistance and movement. One phone is a good phone that does not have off-hook phantom events. The other phone will be the phone that you're troubleshooting. So that would be one of the first things to consider looking at, is just the mechanics of the phone. Is there any noticeable difference between a working phone and a phone that's having issues as far as the off-hook event issues? The other item to look at is going to be, is there debris noticed on the phone, such as small elements of material, possibly sawdust, metal particles, plastic particles, or other particles? Since this can affect the hook switch performance, so if this phone is located in an industrial zone and or such as a factory, there could be elevated levels of different type of debris or particles, and this over time can build up within the phone itself, causing performance issues with the hook switch. So be aware of this. If this is such a case, it might be very limited on what you can actually do if there's a lot of contamination that has intruded the phone. The next one kind of falls into the same bucket, would be if the phone is exposed, has chemical exposure. So let's say if it's again industrial setting where there's certain types of chemicals that may be harsh to the materials that the phone is built out of, and causing accelerated breakdown of the materials within the phone itself. So that's another consideration for certain industries, that elevated levels of certain chemicals can cause breakdown of different components within the phones themselves. The next one would be physical damage to the phone due to elevated levels of force and or high duty cycles. Generally, what I found is phones are designed to be fairly durable as far as the longevity, as far as how many years they can be used. That's been my experience over the years using phones. However, if this is an environment where, again, there's a lot of exposure to different type of, if it's factory and there's a lot of different physical activity, vibrations, exposure to elevated levels of contamination, exposure to elevated levels of different types of chemicals, and also just being a rugged type situation in different type of industries where the physical handling of the phone might be substantially different compared to a office environment. So these are all different attributes just to consider if you're having off-hook events during the troubleshooting process. The next item to consider is checking and seeing if Bluetooth, wireless, and or any accessories are attached and or enabled on the phone to make sure these accessories, so such as Bluetooth accessories, wireless accessories, or any other types of physical accessories that may be attached via also wired to the phone, that somehow are triggering the phantom off-hook events. So this would be, again, one of the early stage items that I will look at or consider troubleshooting, just to make sure the phantom off-hook events are not being triggered by Bluetooth type of accessory, wireless accessory, or physical accessory attached to the phone. The capability as far as which phones may or may not support Bluetooth, wireless, and or have acceptability of accessories does vary, so you definitely would want to look at the data sheet. Not all phones may offer these options for Bluetooth, wireless, and or accessory like headsets to be plugged in. The other consideration would be location of the phone. Is it on a solid surface without vibrations that may be triggering off-hook events? It is assumed that the phone is placed on a desk with a level surface. However, if the desk is located in a factory type of setting where they have heavy machinery, where there is substantial vibrations being transmitted through the building structure, sometimes you can get areas of the building where the harmonics are very noticeable. The vibrations become very violent. So this is another consideration, is the location of the phone itself. The fourth item is disassociating the phone from soft phones such as WebEx software client. It is possible that there is triggering occurring from the actual soft phone itself. This also could be other software. I'm just using this as an example. So we want to kind of systematically, line by line, figure out which possible thing could be triggering this off-hook event. So this is one element just to consider. Is that user the phone associated with? Are they also using a soft phone client? And is the soft phone client being used at times that might be triggering like the off-hook event? So a consideration. Number 5, moving the phone to a different location, such as a home office, to see if the issue follows the phone or stays with the location. So this would really be good, such as what I mentioned on line item number 3. We want to see if the environment itself will change the symptom of the phone. Is it an industrial type environment, or is there some other odd type of situation going in that environment that could be triggering the phone with the phantom off-hook events? Number 5 does not require any technical ability, as far as there's nothing really technically we're doing other than moving the phone. This presentation assumes you're using the Cisco MPP phone known as 3PCC with a cloud service such as WebEx calling or something very similar. With those types of services, moving a phone temporarily from your office to your home, for example, like over the weekend, if you're having issues every day with the phone with the off-hook event, then consider moving it one weekend, Saturday, Sunday, to your home office. The only real requirement is internet access. So you can plug RJ45 for internet access with PoE. Either you have a PoE switch or you have a PoE midspan injector, and or the phones do also have AC adapters. That would be another method. And just plug it in your home, let it run for Saturday, Sunday. Did you notice any phantom events? Does the issue follow the phone, or does it stay with the location? So number 5, again, no really technical thing that you're doing other than physically moving the phone, figuring out if the issue follows the phone or stays with the location. The next one is if you can't do number 5 for whatever reason, number 6, consider changing the phone's registration to a temp user extension to see if the symptom changes. So on number 6, the only thing we're changing is perhaps again over the weekend or on a day, if it's possible, where the user maybe have a day off and there's somebody there in the office that sits next to the user, changing temporarily their phone to be registered to temp user that has a temp extension, meaning there's nothing special going on, just to see if the symptom is still occurring or not. So that would be somewhat of a another option if you cannot do number 5. But number 5 again would be a good test if it's possible. So number 6, if the issue does not occur when we change the phone registration to a temp user or temp extension, then we need to figure out what is going on with the actual original user account that's causing the phantom off-hook events to occur. And that's really where we get more involved in figuring out, is there something special configured in the user account if you're using WebEx calling, looking at WebEx control hub, and or looking at the debug level purity in the phone, and also whatever type of logging the WebEx calling or another cloud-based provider may offer. So that would be more of a technical analysis at that point of time. Number 7, this is another option if number 6 is not possible. Consider moving the phone to an open source lab SIP server such as FreePBX and or Asterisk to see if the symptom changes. This is something you can download that's available online for free, FreePBX or Asterisk, and you can run in a virtual machine. You can register the phone and just let it run for a few days and see if you notice any type of symptoms. And then for the second phone, you can download a soft phone so you can do some test calls just to make sure it's registered, everything looks correct. You can also do Wiresharks and just make sure from a SIP standpoint it's registered. But another test to consider, because does the issue stay with the phone, the physical phone, or does it stay with the original SIP server? Because if it stays with the original SIP server, then we want to find out basically what I mentioned in step number 6. Okay, if it stays with the original SIP server, is the issue tied to the original user, or does issue change when we change actual user to temp user? That kind of gives us some visibility in narrowing what we need to focus on troubleshooting. Okay, we're going to take a look at some documents that Cisco has published regarding phone cleaning and or hook switch considerations. So this first document we're going to look at is going to be cleaning IP phones correctly. I'll leave a link in the description below so you guys can go ahead and take a look at this directly at a later time. Okay, so this document basically, I'll kind of read verbatim here. This document describes how to properly clean Cisco IP phones and provides guidance on the safest way to keep your device clean. Then under general information, the internal electronics on the IP phones can be damaged when exposed to water, liquids, or powders. When cleaning a Cisco phone, do not spray any liquid substance directly on the device. Instead, use a damp cloth to lightly scrub in touch points. So basically they want us to use a damp cloth or to wipe lightly, scrub the touch points of the phone. So basically the handling areas of the phone. If the cloth is wet, the gaps in the plastic on the device can allow liquid to reach sensitive electronics of the phone. So yeah, this is definitely, you want to be careful so you don't get any liquid dripping inside there, causing short circuit or causing residues to build up over time, which again can manifest in different types of issues. Short circuits, impedance changes, oxidation, and other such negative effects. As with all non-waterproof electronics, liquids and powders can damage components and cause hardware failures. Okay, this next statement is, in healthcare environments, it's highly recommended usage of Cavi wipes and or Sanav wipes to thoroughly clean the phones. Okay, so these wipes contain up to 17% isopropylene. There are a few important points to remember about cleaning the IP phones, any chemical solution that contains higher amount of isopropylene, such as pure isopropylene or an alternative to alcohol-based liquid, can potentially damage the phones. Do not use harsh chemical agents such as bleach or other chemicals to clean the exterior case on the phone. Cleaning your phone immediately if it comes in contact with anything that could cause stains or other damage, for example, dirt or sand, ink, makeup, soap, detergent, acids, acidic foods, or lotions. So yeah, if there's an accident occurs, you definitely want to try to clean the phone as soon as possible. You also may want to rotate the phone upside down just to make sure if anything is potentially has protruded in that hopefully can reverse it using gravity for it to come out. Okay, so it says note, use cavi wipes or sand wipes more than 3 times a day can damage the exterior surface of the phone and adversely affect the phone's appearance. So basically you want to use some moderation as far as how often the phone is being cleaned. Okay, so it says if you need to clean or disinfect the phone more than usual, consider the use of Cisco-approved silicone covers for desktop phones and handsets, which are made from medical-grade silicone. Okay, so I'll kind of let you read the rest here, but there's a link here, and I'll make sure I leave a link for this document in the description. So there's one other document we want to look at: troubleshooting and cleaning an IP phone hook switch, which is kind of the main topic of this video today. Okay, so this document describes the best practices to clean and troubleshoot Cisco IP phone hook switches in order to prevent unnecessary return material authorizations, or RMAs. Okay, so the background information: a thorough analysis of a large number of Cisco IP phones that have been reported as hardware failures reveals that a great majority of these phones do not have any determinable failure. The standard by which the phone industry measures phone failures is based upon the Bell Corp Telecorda standards, and the standard accepted failure rate is around 4%. The Cisco IP phone overall failure rate is well under the acceptable industry average. Many of the problems that have been reported as hardware failures are really either operational or cleanup issues. Okay, this document describes some common steps you can take to troubleshoot certain issues before you replace a Cisco IP phone. Okay, so they're going to focus here on clean and troubleshoot the Cisco IP phone hook switch. Okay, so it says, note, a slightly dampened soft cloth must be used to clean or wipe down the phone. Do not use any liquids or powder directly on the phone to clean or for other purposes. As with all but weatherproof electronics, liquids and powders can contaminate the components and cause failures. That is correct. Signaling. Check to see whether signaling works properly between the phone and call manager. So in this case, they're assuming this is an enterprise phone with call manager, but in this case, the assumption is you're most likely using the MPP firmware on the phone with WebEx calling or possibly other cloud provider. Use the speaker button to answer the phone or take the phone off hook if the call is answered or dial tone is received. Signaling is active. So they're just checking to make sure, is the phone registered? Can we get dial tone? You can also make a test call, etc., etc. Also note, I do have other videos I've created on how to turn on debug level logging on the 3PCC phones via WebEx calling. If you're not using WebEx calling, you're using another service, most likely you would need to do the debug level turn on function directly on the phone itself via admin account. So you would want to just check with that other service. Do you have admin access to the phone, or is there something they have to give you? With WebEx calling, you can turn on debug level very easily through Control Hub. I'll leave a link to one of my other videos that shows that, but that's very critical. If you're running into any issues, you want to immediately turn on debug level for the phone. As soon as the issue occurs, you want to generate a debug level phone, document the timestamp when issue occurred, what was noticed on the phone right before the issue event, and what was noticed during the issue event. So document the caller, the callee, what phone number you were calling. Did you have anybody on hold? What were the actual transactions? All of these things may come into play during the troubleshooting process. Also, if you can create a short video clip, that would also be very helpful for the different teams. They may be involved in helping you troubleshoot the symptom you're seeing with the phone. The next item is going to be the cradle clip. So the phones are designed with a reversible clip in the handset cradle area. The clip is used with the tab out when the phone is wall mounted. Check to see whether the cradle handset clip is in the wall mount position with a plastic tab that protrudes upwards. This basically would hold the handset in place if the phone is vertically mounted against the wall, so that the handset would not fall out. So it's like a little hook or notch, if you will. If the phone is on a desktop, slide the clip upwards to remove it and rotate 100 degrees. Slide back in so the tab is hidden. So if this is used for a desktop deployment, which would be a huge majority of phones, the clip on the actual phone itself where the handset is placed down, which is kind of the top part of the handset, it should not be protruding out. So be aware that clip, if it's protruding out, that can actually cause some anomalies or some performance issues as far as putting the phone down, picking it up. So something we want to physically inspect just to make sure that is not causing issues. This tab can interfere with the handset. It is replaced on the base in the cradle. Okay. So basically when it's placed in the cradle or the base, putting down the phone, it can interfere with that action. It won't go down smoothly. It may kind of get stuck, or it may be stubborn, not being able to really align itself and do a positive physical contact to cause the hook switch to be closed, which causes the hook switch to remain in the up position. When the handset is lifted later in an attempt to initiate a new call or answer one, the hook switch is not activated. If you answer call, the phone continues ringing. If you place the call, no doubt on occurrence. So we just want to make sure that the clip is not protruding out. If the phone's used in a desktop deployment, normally this would not be an issue, but you never know if somebody noticed a clip and decided to remove the clip, and when they put it back in, it wasn't put in correctly. So that definitely could be an issue. Okay, so LAN cord, aka network cord. Check to see whether the dark gray cord LAN cable that was packaged with the phone is in use. If a different patch cable is in use, position it pass outside the phone between the base and the footstand. Other cables such as Cat5, Cat5e, Cat6 that have larger diameters can be too large for the pass-through opening and the phone tilt forward position. That is true. Some of the cables can actually be very rigid. Some of the higher grade cables, due to the construction in the cable itself. Phones themselves do not have a lot of mass. Although they're objects, when you pick them up, you notice they're actually quite low on weight. And I have seen issues where the cable itself is a very stiff cable, has very minimal flexibility, and can cause the phone not to sit flat on an actual desk. And the way the handsets are designed with the phones are designed so they can very easily, in a rapid fashion, be removed for the phone, for the user to very easily use them, and to be placed on. So having a flat phone being on a flat surface is very critical with no rocking motion. Otherwise, that can introduce some anomalies where the hook switch may not go down all the way. The footstand is designed to allow the most number of positions to eliminate glare from the display. When the phone is adjusted to the most vertical position, larger diameter cords can force the phone forward to a point where the handset does not sit firmly in a hook switch. This creates false off-hook conditions. Correct. So this is kind of what I mentioned earlier. We physically first want to look at the phone and understand, is it a mechanical issue? And when I say mechanical issue, just the fact that the phone is not level, maybe there's rigid cable, the Cat5 or Cat6, Cat7, etc., whatever cable is being used, it is a very rigid cable. Or it's in a situation, maybe the phone is not on a table, maybe it's on top of boxes, maybe it's a warehouse situation. So we just want to make sure we eliminate those possibilities that might be causing false off-hook conditions or phantom off-hook events, if you will. Keep the phone one notch from the most vertical position to ensure the handset firmly rests on the hook switch. So we just want to make sure there's a natural, when we lie down, it naturally is able to come to a firm sitting or resting position on a hook switch. And we want to do it a few times just to make sure everything naturally feels correct. And then I would compare it to another phone you might have in office that nobody's reported any issues, and then do the same thing there. And you may want to do a couple times back and forth between the two phones. Do you notice any difference? Because that'll be very critical. Those are some of the physical attributes in the troubleshooting you want to analyze. Self-clean hook switch contacts. The hook switch contact design uses a wipe action to self-clean the contacts. Extended periods of time without use of the phone will allow air impurities such as dust or other contaminants to hinder contact performance, which results in intermittent operation. Press and release the hook switch rapidly a dozen times or so to clean the contacts. So this is something that you may have experienced in past times with different electronics. This was an item that if you have edge connectors, I'll just use this example, though this is not what's happening in the phone itself, but just as an example. Some time ago, it was very popular to have video arcade consoles that used cartridges. And one of the weaknesses of those cartridges were the contacts. Over time, edge connectors with copper traces would build a layer of either contamination from small particles they might be floating in the air, if it's a dust environment or there's other industries in the vicinity, and or it could be just humidity close to the ocean or whatever the situation, and there could be a layer of oxidation buildup. So one of the techniques that's being used, kind of not the exact same that's being stated here, but similar idea, was if you would run into that, you would use a eraser head to basically take a portion of the surface, whatever contaminants there may be on it, to clear it out, and or alcohol to clear it out. Obviously you cannot do that with this because these are internal components, but the way it's designed is when you actuate the actual hook switch, it is designed for it to start performing like a self-cleaning. So just something to consider. So if it was something that's been sitting maybe in a storage for many years, and now you pull it out, the phone, and you try to use it and it's not functioning correctly, this, what they're stating here, could be a main contributor. Okay, we'll go ahead and take a look at the phone right now. I'm using a 6800 series phone. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do some actuations, lifting the handset, putting the handset down, making sure that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Now I'm going to use actually my fingertip again to do multiple actuations to make sure it feels natural, smooth. It is activating when I let go, and it's closing the hook switch when I'm putting down. I'm going to take the clip out, and I'm just going to inspect the clip. The clip with the 6800 is a little bit different than the 88 or 7800. So in any case, I'm going to put the clip back in. If you're suspecting the clip, just remove the clip and do testing without the clip. If you're not sure, but it should be flush. There should be nothing protruding out with the clip. The clip is really designed if the phone is going to be positioned to a vertical position. So right now I'm just doing some testing. The handset's really designed to delicately balance in the cradle of the phone. If you've ever tried to transport a phone, you realize you have to actually hold it with both hands because there's a high risk. You can also use some type of instrument to do more delicate testing. I'm using a gauge. The gauge is for the automotive industry for testing gaps. Nothing to do with the phone, but if you have some type of plastic utensil or something, you can gently press it down. You might be able to get a better feel for the actuations. The next item is we want to make sure the surface is level. I'm using a 3-dimensional level here, and this is something we want to just make sure, is everything level, is it solid, are there any vibrations showing up during the usage of the phone. If this is industrial type of facility, maybe close to the railroad station, maybe there's electric motor for elevator, something in the vicinity. Okay, so just another camera angle close up here where I'm just testing the actuations using my fingertip, just making sure that it feels natural, it is not getting stuck. There is a certain level of tension on the spring. So it's really kind of a balancing act. And if you're not sure what is the right level of tension, you can compare it to another phone you have in the same office and kind of get a sense, does the tension feel the same? Does the distance travel feel the same? Does it feel like the actual switch is aligned? It's not too loose. Is it normal, or does it feel like it's getting stuck? It's not traveling the same distance, or it's traveling, and then when you let go, it doesn't spring back up. So that's a close look of the clip right there. So we want to make sure that clip is not protruding out and interfering. If you're not sure, you can temporarily remove the clip, but it should be flush. If you notice how it's flush there with the outline of the actual cradle. And then we want to make sure the handset itself is not damaged. Everything looks good on it, and it should really kind of naturally fit into the phone. The cable itself that attaches from the handset to the phone, it does have some weight on it. I did have a situation in one of my lab locations where we just went through a move. I had a lot of boxes, and a lot of the phones, the cables from the handset to the phone were protruding out. They were kind of draped over the edge of the boxes, and I did notice the phones were fairly sensitive when it came to, they can very easily go off hook in that situation. So just be aware on how it's situated. Here I'm going to attempt to use a meter that measures in ounces to see what the actual spring tension is on it. It's kind of tricky to measure this. So I would say probably for your situation, it would be best to just take 2 phones and just use your fingertips and compare the good phone to the phone that's having off switch of phantom events, and just kind of get a feel, press down the hook switch, let it go, press down the hook switch. Is the tension the same? Is the travel the same? Is it alignment? Is one hook switch kind of loose, or is it fairly tight in alignment? So when you travel from maximum height to maximum low depth position of the hook switch, does it give you the same feeling throughout the motion from top dead center of the hook switch to the bottom dead center of the hook switch throughout the travel motion? But in any case, this is being measured in ounces, what you're seeing. So again, it's kind of hard to measure. In any case, hopefully this video helps you with troubleshooting if you're having phantom off-hook switches with a Cisco IP phones. Thank you for watching the video.